I paid $58,000 for my daughter's wedding. When I walked into the reception, I found my place card at a table by the kitchen doors, seated with the waiters and the man running the sound. And I want you to know something. I smiled. I sat down. I set my napkin in my lap like it was exactly where I meant to be, because I already knew something most of that room did not, and I knew the truth had a way of finding the surface on its own. It always does. It just takes patience, and patience I had. My name is Margaret. I'm 63. I lost my husband Tom 2 years before that wedding, and I still set 2 coffee cups out some mornings before I remember. So when my daughter Claire got engaged, I didn't hesitate. I told her I would take care of the day. All of it. I wanted her to have something beautiful in a year that had held so much sadness. I didn't say it to be a hero. I said it because she's my only child, and her father wasn't going to walk her down that aisle. I could at least make sure the roses were right. Now, before I tell you what happened at that reception, you should meet Diane. Diane is the mother of the groom, and I want to be fair to her because this story isn't about a monster. Diane is polished. She hosts beautifully. She remembers everyone's name and their allergies. She has a way of complimenting your dress that lets you know, gently, that she noticed it was not expensive. From the moment our children got engaged, Diane started using a certain word. Our word. As in, our vision for the day. Our guest list. The florist we chose. I let it go the first few times. I told myself she was excited. She had waited a long time to marry off her son, and I understood wanting to feel part of it. But here's the thing about a small untruth. If nobody corrects it, it grows. And Diane's version of that day grew until, somewhere along the way, she became the host of a wedding she had not paid a single dollar toward. I'll give you one example, so you know I'm not exaggerating. The 3 of us went to the tasting together. Diane, Claire, and me. A long table, small plates, a chef explaining every sauce. When it came time to choose the entree, the chef turned to me because I was the one on the contract. And before I could answer, Diane said lightly, "Oh, we'll do the salmon and the short rib. We've talked it all through." We had not talked it through. She had decided in the car on the way over. I let the salmon and the short rib stand because they were good choices and because Claire looked happy. And I told myself a dinner menu was not worth a scene. Looking back, that tasting was the whole wedding in miniature. Diane spoke, I paid, and everyone at the table assumed the 2 of us were the same kind of person in that room. I could have stopped it. I want to be honest with you about that. There were moments I could have said plainly in front of people, "Actually, I'm covering the wedding." I chose not to. Partly for Claire, who was already stretched thin between 2 families, and partly because if I'm telling the truth, I didn't think I should have to announce it. I thought the doing of it should be enough. That was my first lesson, and I'll come back to it. Because it turned out I was both right and wrong. Let me tell you what $58,000 buys. It buys the venue, a restored estate with a garden that smells like the whole month of June. It buys 140 guests, dinner and a bar that stays open past midnight. It buys a band, not a playlist. It buys Claire's dress and the alterations and the shoes she cried over in the store. I wrote the checks. I signed the contracts. My name was on every one of them. I say that not to brag. I say it because it matters for what comes next. The wedding itself was lovely. Claire was luminous. I sat in the second row because Diane's family had filled the first, and I told myself the second row sees the ceremony just fine. And it does. I watched my daughter marry a good young man named Daniel, and for those 20 minutes I forgot every small thing that had been nibbling at me. Then came the reception. I walked into that hall behind the crowd looking for the seating chart, and a young woman with a clipboard helped me find my name. She read it twice. Then she pointed to a table near the back by the kitchen doors, and I watched her face do a small, uncomfortable thing. Table 14 was where they'd put the mother of the bride, seated with 2 vendors, a +1 nobody had accounted for, and the kind gentleman running the soundboard, who introduced himself as Reggie and offered me a mint. Up front at the head table and the tables ringed around it sat Diane's family. Her sisters, her cousins, a row of people I had met exactly once, and Diane herself, seated where a mother of the bride would usually sit, close enough to the newlyweds to touch them. Now, I felt it. I won't pretend I didn't. There's a particular heat that climbs up the back of your neck when you understand you've been put in your place, and this was a place chosen on purpose. A seating chart isn't an accident. Someone sat with a pen and decided where the woman who paid for everything would go. But here's what I did with that heat. I let it pass through me. I have buried a husband. I have sat alone in a hospital hallway at 3 a.m. A table by the kitchen was not going to break me, and I decided right then that I would not give anyone the show they might be waiting for. So I smiled at Reggie. I asked about his grandkids, and I kept one eye on the room because I knew something the seating chart didn't. Let me explain. When you pay for a wedding of this size, you don't just hand over money and disappear. You become the account. The venue coordinator, a steady woman named Rosa, had my cell number. Not Diane's. Mine. Every question about timing, about the bar, about the overtime for the band came to me. That was in the contract. My signature, my card on file, my final word. Diane didn't know that. Why would she? She had never seen a single piece of paper. She had only heard herself say, "Our vision," enough times to believe it. Dinner came. It was beautiful. And somewhere between the salad and the main course, Diane did the thing that turned the whole evening. She stood and she made her way over to my table by the kitchen. Slowly, so people would see her being gracious. She put a hand on my shoulder, and she said in that warm voice of hers, loud enough for the nearby tables, "Margaret, I hope you're comfortable back here. We wanted family closest to the kids. You understand." And she smiled at me, and I understood exactly what she was doing. She was drawing a line, in public with a smile, and putting me on the far side of it. I looked up at her, and I said, "It's a lovely evening, Diane. Claire looks so happy." That was all. I didn't defend myself. I didn't say a word about money. I let her keep her line right where she'd drawn it. A few minutes later, Daniel, my new son-in-law, slipped away from the head table and crouched down by my chair. He didn't say much. He just said he was glad I was there, and he asked if I had everything I needed, and he stayed a minute longer than politeness required. I don't think Daniel knew the full shape of what his mother had done, but he knew enough to come to the back of the room, and that told me my daughter had chosen well. So I patted his hand and sent him back to his wife. Because I had learned in 2 years of grief that you don't have to win the moment you're standing in. Some truths are better delivered by someone else's hand. And Diane walked back to the front, satisfied, thinking she'd settled something. Here is where the evening turned, and I promise you it turned quietly. Around 10 o'clock, the bar was running dry. 140 guests and an open bar will do that. The band wanted to know if they should play the extra hour. The venue needed a decision, and that decision cost money, and only one person in that building could authorize it. Rosa, the coordinator, went first to the head table. Of course she did. That's where the host appeared to be. I watched her lean toward Diane and ask her something, and I watched Diane's face because I know that face now. It was the face of a woman who suddenly realized she did not have the authority to say yes. Rosa straightened up. She looked at her clipboard, and then she walked. Past the head table, past Diane's sisters, past all of it. All the way to the back of the room to table 14 by the kitchen doors. And she crouched next to me, and she said, clearly, because Rosa is a professional and had no reason to whisper, "Mrs. Hale, the bar's running low and the band's asking about the extra hour. Do you want me to extend everything? It's your call." The tables around us went quiet. Not dramatically, just that small hush when people realize they're overhearing something that rearranges what they thought they knew. I said, "Yes, extend the bar. Let the band play. It's a wedding." And Rosa said, "Wonderful. I'll bring you the final paperwork before you leave so you have everything for your records." And she stood and she walked back toward the front, and the whole room had just watched the coordinator ask the woman by the kitchen for permission to spend money. I didn't look at Diane. I didn't have to. I could feel the front of the room doing the math. Now, I want to be careful here because this is the part that matters most to me. I did not gloat. I did not stand up and make a speech. The thing I had wanted all along was not to humiliate Diane. It was simply to be seen truthfully. And the truth had just walked across the room in a coordinator's sensible shoes and knelt down next to me. The evening went on. The band played the extra hour. Claire and Daniel danced, and one by one, quietly, people began to make their way to the back of the room. Diane's sister came first, a little sheepish, and said she'd love for me to come sit closer. I thanked her and said I was perfectly happy where I was. And I was. Because a funny thing happens when a room understands who really carried the day. The far side of the line Diane drew became the best seat in the house. People came to me. I didn't have to go to them. Near the end of the night, Rosa found me and handed me a slim folder. The final invoice marked paid in full. $58,000, itemized, my name on every line. And as she handed it to me, Diane happened to be passing by. She saw it. She saw the total, and she saw the name, and she saw the 2 words stamped across the top. And for the first time all night, Diane didn't have anything to say. I closed the folder. I said, "Thank you, Rosa. It was a beautiful night." And I meant it. Diane and I never had a conversation about it. There was no confrontation, no apology, no scene for anyone to film. She simply knew that I knew and that the room knew, and that was enough. Some accounts get settled without a single raised voice. Here's what I understood driving home that night, with the folder on the seat where Tom used to sit. I had spent so long believing that if I just did enough, gave enough, paid enough, the right seat would come to me on its own, that the doing would speak for itself. And I was wrong about that. Diane taught me that quietly cutting a check does not stop a person from rewriting the story to put themselves at the center of it. Silence is not the same as being understood. If you never say the true thing out loud, you leave room for someone else to say a false one. But I was also right, because when it finally mattered, the truth didn't need me to shout it. It needed me to hold my composure long enough for it to arrive on its own. If I had stood up at that table and announced what I'd spent, I'd have looked like a woman fighting for a chair. Instead, the chair came looking for me. And I'll tell you the part I didn't expect. By the end of that night, I wasn't angry at Diane anymore. I felt something closer to pity, because she spent that whole evening guarding a seat, and I spent it watching my daughter get married. Only one of us actually attended the wedding. Claire called me the next morning. Someone had told her about the seating, and she was mortified, and she cried, and she apologized for something that was never her fault. I let her get it all out, and then I told her the truth. I told her I would sit by a kitchen door in every reception hall in the country if it meant watching her that happy. That part was never a sacrifice, not for 1 second. She's quiet for a moment, and then she asks me why I didn't just tell everyone. And I tell her what I'm about to tell you. So if you've ever been put at the back of the room by someone who smiled while they did it, let me leave you with what that night taught me. You do not have to raise your voice to be heard. You do not have to prove your worth to people who have decided not to see it. Do the right thing quietly, keep your dignity, and let the receipts speak when the moment comes. They always come. A person can seat you wherever they like. They cannot decide what that seat is worth once the truth sits down beside you. I paid $58,000 for my daughter's wedding, and they sat me with the waiters, and I would not trade that table or what I learned at it for the finest seat in any house. If this story stayed with you, there's another one I think you'll understand. It's about a father who was told he wasn't needed at his own son's graduation dinner and what he did with a seat they left empty. It's playing right now. I'll see you there. You.